Hello, everyone, and welcome to PWD Allies podcast. My name is Brent Frain. I'm the host. Please subscribe, share, and like the content that you are listening to or viewing today. Today, I have Alun Davies joining me to talk about accessibility, and
Easy for you to say.
yes. Hello, Alun. Thanks for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Oh, great. And so Alan's going to be talking about accessibility and photography. It's so important of a topic that Alan wants to dive into because it really affects anybody with mobility issues related to their disability and photography. It kind of coincide with each other. And so, Alan, thanks for coming on today. Yeah, great. So, how are you doing with your arm, Alan?
My brain thinks we're all good to go. The body reacts in relation to that, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
It's like I went down to shoot the just after the solar eclipse had come out, and I thought I'd go out on the Wolf Island Ferry because over the clear water I would get a better shot of the moon, and I was hoping I'd get a shot of the moon right over the city as I was pulling away from it. I realized that the cloud was so far into the moon was so behind the cloud, it would have been just a puff of mush. So, but I took my big 200 to 500 millimeter with me, and my shoulder reacted accordingly.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's why I have a smaller camera. I have the little, it's still a
well, even when
swappable lens camera, but it's one of the smaller ones. Yeah.
Even when my like I use the big bag, so I mean not tell me, but generally I wouldn't do that. I have a little camera bag that opens from the back so that if I'm walking down the street, no one could actually grab my camera gear by unzipping because the zipper is pressed up against my back. All my bags are pretty much like that.
You take some really amazing photos, Ellen. I'm looking at some of the photos that you've been putting out. Some of the
I got some car ones, but I haven't edited yet.
And we're gonna turn over the show a little bit later where we're gonna do a screen share, and Alan can show some photos. But
I don't have any cars, and I don't think
but
there's any cars.
But one of the things we're going to talk about, like originally when we were talking about this episode, I was thinking that Alan wanted to talk about doing a project about accessibility and taking photos about accessibility. But what this episode is in what ways is photography accessible and in what ways isn't it? Like, what are some of the pitfalls of that either make it accessible or not accessible as a hobby for somebody that has a disability? Yeah,
I think I would say that the first thing that makes it non-accessible, not to be what makes it accessible is that anybody can do it even with their phone. What makes it not accessible is the rearing cost that if you want to go deeper into it, you really have to have some funds, and that can be as little as spending $400 on a used camera, as much as spending thousands on gear like me.
I mean, I'm guilty of that too. The most I've ever spent, like where you spend the money is on lenses, and the most I've ever spent
batteries.
And the most I've ever spent on a lens is like $1,000, and that was I didn't want to do it, but I go, this is like such an awesome lens, I had to do it. But I mean that you're getting up there in like big coin, right? And but it's scary. I mean, it's scary onest you get up there.
Yes.
do I really need that lens for $1,000? And it's like, yeah, you kind of do.
Well, every artist to some extent has gear acquisition syndrome.
Yeah.
And whether you're a guitar player that just has to have that Gretsch guitar in the collection, or that Rickenbacker, or that Fender rare model, or that foot pedal by Jimi Hendrix, the Wawa, whatever it may be, got to have that next amp because it just makes the room sound so different compared to the tiny little amp you have that's stuck under your bed.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't matter whether it's camera gear or musical gear or people that fly those remote planes or like I mean even flying a gear what do they call it oh my god I'm hanging a drone like
Oh
yeah.
even if you're at the bottom of the drone you're still into $400
Yeah, I know. Those are
and
big coins.
and those are generally the ones that are under 500 kilograms. If you get into the DJI drones, which are 500 grams, and you need a license to fly the thing, you know, you're into $1,200, especially if like I remember the DJI Pro that my brother-in-law had. He had to get flying lessons. He ended up selling it because the course is so intensely complicated.
Almost like the triples, they multiply.
Yeah.
But it was the camera, the lens camera on this drone was like by Leica, and it was a super expensive.
Yeah.
4K, 20 frames per second or whatever. I was like, oh.
Well, if I was gonna pick one area where photography might be inaccessible, it's for people with disabilities. It's the simple fact that, if you have a disability, chances are you're going to be a little bit slower. You have to be a bit more methodical because, if you have a physical disability, you know, all of the kind of shoots that I've done where I've gotten paid for, I mean, people have known that I have it's not, I don't surprise them and go, surprise! Like I don't show up and go, surprise, guess what? I'm disabled. They know, they know ahead of time. So everybody that I've done kind of professional things with that I've gotten paid on, it's not a surprise where I just show up and like, oh, I didn't know. So that's the one thing. So they know I'm a bit slower to set up shots and I have to be a bit more methodical. But the other thing too is, and this is going to be both kind of funny and maybe not funny, but there's been a couple of times where like when I used to have crutches and I would go on shoots to like a beach or something. I've done a lot of shoots at a beach. And then, so of course, like I'm on crutches and you're walking over on uneven ground and on sand and stuff like that. So it's possible that you can trip yourself up, right? Well, there's been a couple times where I've been on a shoot and I've got my camera and I mean, Ellen will appreciate this, but I've taken a tumble where I didn't care about myself. I cared about the lens. So I was protecting the lens as I was
camera gear up in the air.
Yeah, camera gear up in the air. Camera's up in the air. You don't want the camera to be hurt. So you're just falling on your body. So I've done that a couple of times. And again, because people know that I'm just have a disability, they didn't freak out and go, oh no, they're just like, oh well. And they just waited for me to get up again, and they didn't freak out. Whereas if I had just advertised myself as a regular photographer, and then if I did that on a shoot, some people would just freak out about that. But most
I
people,
think too the ideology, the stigma in general towards disabilities will hamper your odds of getting paid gigs.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, like for example, when I was involved in that studio that's in Kingston here, that I'm no longer part of, she was telling people, this is Alan. He's disabled, but he's a great photographer, and it became an ableistic thing. So they were just like, oh, I'm not hiring him. He's disabled. You know what I mean? And that was one of my gripes with this ableist approach that. And it took a long time to really not have an issue with letting people know I had a disability because of the stigma. So my attitude was, I'm applying to do that photo shoot because I know I have the gear and the skill sets to do so.
Yeah.
People, I don't know why we have it in society. It comes up, it rears its ugly head in so many different ways, but the stigma It doesn't matter if you had a full driver's license and you were one of the best skilled car drivers.
Yeah.
You know, I'm disabled, but I want to do rally racing.
Like for example,
Exactly.
like there's been a couple of weddings where and weddings. I mean, you can speak to this too, Alan. Well, weddings are one of the most stressful things for a photographer. Like, I mean, if you screw up on a wedding as a photographer, it's
Have
big,
no
right?
mercy.
Oh,
Have
yeah.
no mercy when you piss the
Yeah,
bride off.
it's a lot of stress. It's a lot of stress because like you're playing with somebody's like
Day.
sacred day.
Oh, yeah.
Memory.
Yeah, and if you mess up the shots, I mean there's no
Really?
there's
Well,
no
it doesn't have to.
there's
That's
The
a
no
thing
big
is,
part
it
of
do-over,
doesn't.
it.
It doesn't
right?
have to even mean that you're going to mess up the shots. If one of your pieces of equipment takes a nosedive,
Exactly.
or
Well,
Yeah.
that too, like
um,
a card failure or something like that.
if I was doing a wedding, I would include the cost of a second photographer. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
well,
solo.
that's what I was gonna say. And there actually have been a couple of times where I was the only guy
Oh,
doing the shot, and it was good. I have to say, every time I basically there's was it I guess it's been three. Has it been three or four? Actually, it's been four weddings, and mostly through friends. We're just talking like friends,
Yeah.
and they were willing to let me do it. So four weddings where I was basically the only guy,
wow.
and every wedding actually turned out really, really good, like really good. I was really happy with, and the bride and groom were super happy with the shots. But what I was going to say is that what Ellen said, if you're unsure that you can pull it off,
Mhm.
you definitely want to say, well, maybe I can be the second photographer or the backup
Well,
photographer.
Have a backup. Yeah.
I was
If you don't want to, if you want to be have the stress of being the only person,
Yeah.
yeah.
Take that
well,
responsibility in case something goes.
I would do the lead photography, but I would want a second person as a shooter
Yeah.
doing the. That way, I can say, okay, you do the bride side, I'm going to do the groom side,
From a
or
different
vice versa,
angle.
or
Yeah.
I will do the bride and the groom. You go do the candid shots.
Mhm.
Anything to take off where you don't have to be at five places at once,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because that's when you what like I did a 300 guest Greek wedding, and
Oh,
I could
Oh.
not get the groom to smile. He looked like he wanted to. He was a construction worker, and he was like stiff. He said it looked like he was gnashing his teeth rather than
Or
smiling.
because
Like
you
I
know,
could
the
not.
old saying, Ellen, is say cheese. What?
Uh, I'm like, you're killing me here, buddy. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I couldn't. And he just looked like he wanted to go around with a baseball bat. You know, he was
Ooh.
like,
Yeah, I can imagine.
um, just because Greek men, especially European men, are very, very serious. It's very hard. It's very hard to find one that will cut loose. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? They have there's a mentality about European men, especially Greek from France. Um, England is a little easier because their humor is a bit better.
Well,
Yeah.
well,
But when
especially
you
Alan, here's a good example is that if you're taking a good photo shoot and it's so important, I mean, it's a good memorable, yeah, memorability for people. Like you say a wedding, just for instance, and everyone's not smiling. You keep trying to say like smile, say cheese, and everyone's like look on their face like no facial expression. So what you do is you take your shoes off, and then also now you get an expression from people's face.
Yeah.
one of the things I knew a photographer did, he had a he had about 10 or 12 good dad jokes locked and loaded and ready to go. And
There you
he'd sit
go.
there with a camera and
That'd be interesting.
he would find one that was related. So, hey, did you hear about the guy that dot 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 dot? And then he'd get them all laughing, and then he'd start shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Um,
it's
it
really
doesn't
important to have
always
the
work,
yeah, it's really
but
really important to have that rapport, right? That's actually the thing that I love about photography is building that rapport with who you're shooting, and
Mhm.
like I've said before on other podcasts with you, Alan, too, is is capturing that essence
Oh,
of a
yeah.
person, like
Yeah.
capturing the
Moment of
essence,
time.
that moment of time, capturing the essence of the moment of time, the essence of a person. It's like the best
One
high in the world to
one
Yeah.
know
of the
you've
things
captured a moment. Yeah.
one of the things I struggle with, and I think it's because I'm on the autistic spectrum, is how to relate to people. I get very timid. Like I'll show a good example here. I went to hang out with my friend Jordan while her mom was visiting someone, and I had my camera gear and stuff, and I just felt really awkward. Like I was getting in their space, and I didn't take
Mhm.
any photos that whole time. I just, for some reason, part of my brain said, "Don't bother
Oh,
people," you know. And
Mm.
even though I've known Jordan 20 years, and she was kind of like, "Oh, don't take any shots of me," and I actually didn't actually point the camera. So I
Yeah.
said, I mean, we wanted to catch up. We hadn't seen each other in years, but I get in those situations that I find that it's especially when I'm trying to do street photography. I'm like, should I maybe not be shooting people who are unhoused sitting in doorways?
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
It's hard for me to really. General people I can do it's easy, but
Yeah.
I've actually came
I
across,
have my real scruples about shooting unhoused
yeah, I
Yeah.
came
You.
across
people.
that too, Ellen, when
Mhm.
we were on our journey, on our train journey, and when I was doing some photo shoots, like live video, we were in downtown Toronto, and so Sonia was actually she was at the accommodation where we were, and so I said, "Well, I'm just gonna go and do some video shoots." She goes, "Oh, okay, go for it." And I was being so careful. I was thinking exactly what you just mentioned about that. Like there was some people that were unhoused, and there was
Yeah.
other people that were sitting at a bus bench, and they're waiting for a bus, and then all of a sudden there was a bunch of garbage that was everywhere. And you saw that shoot that I did.
Oh yeah.
And so I saw that, I'm going, oh wow. Like, but there was some other people that were from a distance and they were gonna sit down, but then their bus was gonna be coming. But then a bunch
Yeah.
of emergency vehicles were coming by, and oh, what talk about timing on that one. This is great.
And I know, like, even on the last podcast at the end, when we talked about the train the other day, but we ended up talking a little bit about photography. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, I listened to that one guy. He's a Canadian, lives in Toronto, I believe, and he has that YouTube channel called Camera Conspiracies. And I
Mm-hmm.
told you his big thing that he does is he goes on a skateboard and he does vlogs of just going down the sidewalk and capturing people walking towards him on the sidewalk,
Yeah.
and then doing everything in slow-mo and then putting it to music. And the way he says it is like it's like capturing human wildlife. He says and he doesn't have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
But like as you were saying, like the way he says it too is like when he does it, he's only trying to capture the best of somebody. Like he's not trying to get them at their worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to try to capture like the best essence of a person and get that on film, and then nobody can be upset about that. But like
Well,
as you were saying, if you capture a homeless person, you're not
yeah.
necessarily capturing the best of that person. So
Yeah.
then,
That's what I do
yeah,
is
Well,
when I do I,
how I do it is
yeah.
with street photography is I'm if I'm photographing someone who's sleeping in a doorway and they've got a shopping cart and stuff, I'm trying to I'll shoot it in the sense that I'm looking at it from the point of view or the optic of saying it's not all rainbows and lollipops here. This
Right.
is this is what's happening because our country's not doing enough
Mm-hmm.
to relegate it when they could. Like if we can, I'm sorry, but if we can give billions of dollars to an AI or to a manufacturer to create batteries for $50,000 cars, we can eradicate homelessness.
yeah,
We could
Exactly,
have done
Alan.
it. We can do it 3 times. So I'm like, okay, I want people to see that they can walk down the street and not see a homeless person and turn a corner and boom,
Yeah, I mean,
and it's
if we
there.
can allow, like Alan, if we
But
if
even with my 70 to 200 millimeter lens, where I'm
yeah,
zoomed out at 70 at 200, I still feel kind of squirmish about it. Like,
Yeah.
If the government can allow big oil companies and big corporations to not pay their fair share, as you know, we hear all the time on the news, and I've had other guests on too. Like they're talking about the oligarchies, right? So I mean, you allow them to get away with not paying billions. I mean, you're talking like tens of billions of dollars that Canada is losing every year. I mean, if they're allowing that to happen, imagine all that money put back into society, what we could do to eradicate homelessness and giving people the proper means to actually put back into society. I mean, wow, we could make.
I walk around quite a bit, and one thing that really frustrates me is when you see a commercial piece of property, it's overgrown, it's run down, there's a big chain link fence blocking it off, and I'm going, you guys. You could take that and you could take that and put in one of those what do they call those container apartment buildings that they've done it in Detroit, like they're crazy amazing. You could that whole property could be landscaped. You could do like a pebble walkway where there's no grass to mow at all. It's all just like a desert thing with these apartment buildings, these containers that can be turned into buildings. Like, and instead, all you do is put up an ugly fence around a chunk of property at the corner of a street and not even do anything with it. And it's an eyesore already.
Well, that's a good segue. That's a good segue, Alan, because let's do the screen share now, and you can actually share some of the photos and start with that one building you were saying that could be repurposed or whatever.
Oh yes,
because I have it set for a screen share now. But so yeah, go ahead and we'll do that.
I did this.
And walk through some of your photos. And as you're walking through the photos too, you can talk about your shoot this. You know.
I'm just trying to get it to.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We kind of walked through all this yesterday. We did a dry run yesterday. We tested all this out. So
it's just waiting for it to load. I clicked on the screen, but it's still flashing.
That's fine.
Man, this may take a few times on my end.
It worked yesterday.
Yeah. So for our listeners that are listening in on the podcast version of today's show, Alun Davies is going to be putting up some photos, and he'll be describing what the
don't jinx me there.
We hope he's going to be putting up some photos.
We hope he will be, but we anticipate. I'll use the word anticipate.
Yeah,
Alun will be talking about the photos that he's going through, and as well as Neil will be talking about them. And I hope everyone's enjoying today's podcast. It's so important that. About photography and accessibility of the barriers that don't need to be barriers, but unfortunately, those are just reality that people go through on a day-to-day basis when they're using cameras and finding what works good for them, and maybe some things that don't work, and tweaking things, but having the accessibility wise kind of correspond with their disability and working with that situation and making sure that people do have the proper resources and the finances to help them with their disability. Like it works coincide with them. Like that's who they are. It's like having, like Neil talks about this a lot on the podcast. It's like having a full wheelchair, or like a scooter versus having just the wheels. Well, what do you sit on, the wheels or so it's part of who he is. It's so important that we're focusing on these things and talking about it.
But again, one of the things I absolutely love about photography is like I think I've shared this too on a few podcasts. It's like when I was a kid, the thing that I wanted to be when I grew up was Steven Spielberg, right? I wanted to be George Lucas too, maybe. Because like I'm wearing my Star Wars shirt just by
okay, can you guys see my screen now?
Yes, I can. It's wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's that one building.
This is the Delta Bingo shot in Niagara before I left. And this used to be a No Frills. In fact,
That's
it's still owned by No Frills. It was a Delta Bingo, which was active, and now it's boarded up and fenced off, as you can see. I did a very apocalyptic.
that is impressive. I love that photo. Oh, that is so amazing. Wow.
But it's literally sitting empty and fenced off, and this is a Loblaws building still owned. The whole back, the whole year, there's a big parking lot that goes right down to the lower streets behind it, and they could completely turn this into a resource center with a tiny house community. They could make it really super nice, and use the building. I've been in there when it was a bingo. It's huge. It's massive.
I love the cloud formation around it, Alan. How you took
Well,
that.
I wanted to make it very ominous. What's the word I'm looking for?
Ominous.
Very,
ominous.
Ominous. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was definitely.
Yeah.
And it almost reminds me of like a Hobbit's house. You know what I mean? Because it's like you got all the cloud cover around it.
It looks a lot more like Mordor.
But you make a good point, Alan, because you make a good point, Alan, because I see a lot of properties. They're like just in the Surrey Langley area where I am. There's a lot of properties where you can see there's condemned houses. They're just sitting there like they've been condemned for like maybe 10 years or more. You know, there's nobody living in them. They're just boarded up and they're just sitting there. And you know, somebody owns the property, but they're not doing anything.
Because the property, when you get people that own like multiple homes or buildings that are the property is more useful as an asset to them, the land, than the building itself. Like they couldn't care whether people have broken the windows or not.
Yeah, but it looks disgusting though. It's just like this one house that I go by all the time. It's been there at least 10 years. Nobody's lived in it, and it looks like it just looks disgusting. Is the best word I could
run down.
It's probably beyond repair, because when a property like that goes bad and it's not meant to keep it, you're talking about years and years of snow on the roof. The roof is probably shot.
But the property, the property is worth a ton of money.
Oh, it is.
And it's like, you mean you can't afford to pay somebody with a bulldozer and like take the place down and just have that property be empty for a while? Because I mean that, like I said, the house there is just really, really disgusting. Like, I don't understand like why it's still there after 10 years.
I would bet that there's properties that have no owner anymore. That the family who might have owned it have passed on. The kids have maybe forgotten. Now, mind you, land is so sacred when it comes to assets and stuff that most people, there is probably an owner somewhere. They either don't live in the country or they don't have any interest in the property itself.
Yeah.
But they're sitting on it as an asset, which means they can borrow against it for very little, pay it off, borrow against it. Anyway,
let's keep going. Let's keep going through the photos, maybe, because we could sit here all day on one photo. Yeah.
Okay. So this one is the first shot in Kingston I shot, and it is it's called selective color. Everything's black and white but the boat, and it's a little tricky to do, though AI is making it generally easier. For example, if I was doing this on my phone today, I would take the color shot and I would make the background in the sky black,
like that photo.
Desaturated, and leave the boat in color, and then I would start adding dehaze into the sky and contrast and dropping the explosion stuff. So
I can live on that boat, Alan.
I actually shot it for my son just because he's not EMT, but he works for St. Joe's medic, like their first aid events, and he loves anything like fire engines and stuff. So I just shot it because it was there, and he really likes stuff like that.
And so as we're going through these photographs, Alan, if you want to talk about your your shoot this project, like
Yeah,
what you have in mind for your shoot
my
this
shoot
project.
this, my shoot this. My ideas is kind of tutorial. It's showing that people can use their phone as well as their camera gear,
Mhm.
and not to so much worry about the those people that say, "Oh, you can't go do that. You can't do that. It's not safe."
Mhm.
It's very easy to take someone with you if you're in a situation where you might be in danger late at night. I'm fearless, but I'm stubborn,
Yeah,
so I'll go out at any hour as long as I'm not going to freeze my behind off.
right.
Um, this was shot. I wanted. I walked past it 2 weeks later. I went and shot it because it reminded me of one of those barber shops from the 1930s.
Yeah, looks pretty cool.
And when I walked past it, I saw it in color, in black and white, not in color, even though it was a sunny day. When I passed it, I was like, I'm going back. I made a note of what intersection it was at, and I came out at night and photographed it. So my hope with shoot this is that people who may think, oh, I'm not much of a photographer. I take pictures with my phone, but that's about it. Can get out there and learn about exposure and leading lines and the grid. If
Yeah.
anyone is who's shooting with an Android can actually turn the camera on and put their phone in full manual mode like they have like an actual camera, and they can mess around with the shutter speed and the ISO and the aperture and all that. iPhones can't. They're kind of
Yeah.
hobbled. That's one thing I don't like about Apple is even though the cameras are great on them, um, you depending on what mode you're in, you can only like in portrait mode you can only shoot aperture. There's no
Oh,
shutter. There's no shutter. Um, there's an exposure meter, so you can
interesting.
change your exposure. But um, so I want to show people just if they have a real camera or if they're just using their phone that
Yeah.
just because they have a disability doesn't mean they can't be a photographer.
And the nice thing too is like I said, like when I was younger, I always wanted to be like a Steven Spielberg. And the reason why is because the one aspect about being a photographer that I love, especially if you're a portrait photographer, you take portraits of people, is that the idea that you get to boss people around a little bit. You get to say like stand here,
Yeah,
you know, like turn this way, smile this way, a little bit, right? Like you don't want to get them so
Wound up.
stone like wound up,
yeah.
but you can just kind of boss them around a little bit and say, I'm gonna
I
shoot from
love
this
that
angle. I'm
photo.
gonna do and like you have to get comfortable with them too. Like there's been I was hired one time for doing it was a disability pageant actually for like a pageant for women as like a disability representative. And so, and for those shots, I was actually having to get right up in their face, and like
Yeah.
I was like putting the camera right up above them in their wheelchairs and like shooting them down in the chair. And so you're almost like really invading their space. So you have to make sure that they're comfortable with that, or you
Right.
can ask first, is it okay if I do this? And maybe they'll say no, and that's fine too. But you really it's important to have that comfort level with
One of
what
the
you're
things I like,
shooting.
one of the things I like, Neil, about my Nikon Z8 and my D850 is that back screen because it allows me more so with my Z8 being the mirrorless camera because I can sit on my. I think I was saying yesterday I can
Mhm.
sit down somewhere on a park bench or on a curb, and I can put the camera on my knee if I'm sitting like I was sitting in a chair, but I'm sitting somewhere on the street, like a bench or something, and I can put the camera on my knee, pull the screen out, and look like I'm just looking at my phone or something,
Yeah,
Hmm.
and I'm not pointing the camera, but I'm
right.
able to capture the person. So that's really handy for street photography. I was
Mhm.
starting to do that more and more as I was walking down Princess Street in Kingston, is I would hang the camera at the lowest spot so it would be just around my waist.
That's a beautiful picture.
I'd pull the screen out and look right down at it while I was walking, and people thought I was just making an adjustment on camera because I wasn't bringing it up to my eye.
Mm-hmm.
I love the reflection there, Alan, in that photo.
Yeah,
but that was shot at 11 p.m.
Oh, it's amazing, amazing photo.
Yeah,
that was shot. It looked. It's got a bit of noise in it because my ISO was so cranked up.
Yeah, what is the ISO on that? Do you remember what the ISO was?
I don't know. Hold on. It might tell me. Let me look.
Because for those that don't know, the higher the ISO is, the more noise you're introducing into the
more sensitivity. 3200.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's pretty high. Yeah, that's getting up there.
It was shot with a 24-70 at 1.78.
So it looks really clean still for being 32. For being 3200, it's still really clean.
I noticed that
it was at 1/15.
Even using like a phone, like the difference of the clarity of
some of the phones now are. They're claiming the iPhone 16, which is the one I'm waiting for. I'm just waiting for a couple. I'm waiting for a couple more payments to go through on my tab before I trade it in, because I've got to have my iPhone's got to be at owing 0 before I can trade it in through TELUS and get my new one.
Yeah.
Because I'm on a trade-in, right? And I have to trade it in anyway, so I'm going to get the new iPhone 16 Pro. Because I've got the 14 Pro, but I generally do skip models in between. If I got the 14, I won't get the 15. I'll wait till the 16. Just because there's a bit of gap between the technology.
I had my Pixel 2 for like 6 years, I think.
I still own an Android. Actually, it's funny. I still own an Android S9, Samsung S9.
Oh, okay.
And it's actually it doesn't have a SIM card in it. I can connect Wi-Fi to it, but it's actually using it as the remote for my D850 when I connect my D850 to the thing. Right. The only problem is I'd have to literally get it on Wi-Fi and send the images to Dropbox, and then Dropbox grab them from my other phone.
I was using my Android just the other day, Neil, when I was uploading some of the music video stuff to you, because my iPhone, I don't know what is going on. I went to go and make the folder, right? And so I went to go and upload it. It said failed to upload. I'm like, what is going on? So I went over to my Android phone, and of course it's right there. Of course, the same folder, like on the Google Drive. And
let's start a war. I'll start it. I'll say Apple sucks.
So I went over to the Android and went to the Google Drive, and the photos are already in there because it gets sent over to Android right away as a backup, and the files are there. And guess what? Up it went, no problem. So I don't know what is going on.
This one is a street photography. I shot at 85 millimeters. It was shot at ISO 250. At f1.4, 85 millimeters, so at 1/600. So, but it was shot across the street. Like this was cool. Shot.
That's cool.
I just waited till there was no traffic passing me and snapped off. But you don't always get lucky. The nice thing about the 72-200 is it gives you a bit of ambiguity. You can get up close without being like where. I noticed that. I noticed right away when I was doing my street photography, when I was walking downtown, as soon as I put the camera up to my eye, people would start veering out of the way. But if you wanted real reaction, the trick was to make it look like you weren't taking photos.
Alan, here's a question for you about zooming in. What do you find is the best zoom in feature, like for the amount of distance for zooming in?
A fixed aperture on the lens makes all the difference.
Like a 2.8.
Yeah, like all my
2.8
lenses,
fixed. Yeah.
my slowest lenses right now, except for my big 200 to 500, are
Yeah.
all 2.8 or lower.
Yeah, because you can buy very cheap zoom lenses, as Ellen's alluding to, but then like a really cheap zoom lens, like the aperture will, or the f-stop will be all the way up to like
At
a
5.6.
6.3, or I've had some that are like 6.3. They're so high, and it's like it just sucks because
Yeah,
the higher the number,
the the
the darker
oh, the
the
slower
images,
and the
right?
slower
And
and
it's
the
way
slower the
slower. It's
lens.
way slower.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I shot this with a 72 with an 85 millimeter.
Oh,
Um, this was shot. I don't know exactly with what, and I don't want to be too technical on this. We'll do one more info. This was shot with a 24 to 70 at 2.8.
oh,
And I made it. I will shoot with the mind that I look at what I'm shooting in black and white, but I still will shoot in color, and
mhm.
then I'll convert to black and white.
Yeah.
But I will see the image as if it's already black and white.
And we should say
Uh,
like a 24 is considered a wide angle.
yeah,
And like a 24 or 28 is considered wide. And then you get to like a 35 is still kind of semi-wide. And then you get up
yeah.
to the 15
Nifty
millimeters
50
considered a
and
normal. Is considered the normal. Yeah.
85 is the ideal portrait lens.
Like more of a zoom portrait. Yeah.
Well, prime lenses are generally your 24 millimeters, your 35 millimeter, your
Yeah.
50, your 85, your 105. Now, in some cases, 1.3, 135, but those are older. Generally, you don't see a lot of primes that are in 135
I think
because
my favorite has got to be like a 35 millimeter. I like
I'm
that the
I'm
best.
waiting for my passport funding because I've got a 35.14 lens that I've submitted as part of my passport funding. I'm really hoping it comes through. Anyway, this was this was taken as an exercise in reflection and using
Interesting.
product photography almost.
Like it.
And what I did was um, I had one of those cheap mirrors that was screwed to the wall,
Mhm.
the big bathroom mirror. And my roommates had taken it off to put up a proper mirror, to hang a
Oh,
proper mirror. So there's this mirror bank hanging around in the basement. And I took it up and I put it on my bed. I laid it on the thing, and then I started setting up stuff. And I used a black backdrop
oh,
on a
well, cool.
stand, and I created this one of these shots. So you could see this is a faded black and white, but
Mhm.
this was
Yeah,
taken at a bowling alley.
like,
One of the really
that is so
important
cool.
thing, one of the important, okay, how do I put this? You could have a lot of really interesting um, things in a shot. A waterfall in a park. You could have a gazebo, an old train. But the problem is, if you have all these elements in the shot, people won't know what to look at. Like, what am I supposed
Yeah.
to be looking at? Am I focused on the waterfall? Am I focused on the train? And what I'm getting at is leading lines are really important when it comes to taking a shot. Whether you load to the ground or on a tripod, you want a leading line. And I tried to create that. That's why I picked this shot because the balls are completely in line with the hole. It's a leading line. Your eyes directed almost past the two balls into the pocket.
Yeah.
It's a leading line composition is almost 90% of the photography uh, goal
And
is
the rule of thirds. You can talk about the rule of
yeah the
thirds
rule
too.
yeah well the rule of thirds is three boxes across, three down. Um, and you can those are great for using leading lines, but often if I take a photograph of a sailboat, I'll almost put it up in the top left or the top right of the picture.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know why, but it seems to look nicer rather than being stuck in the center.
That pool ball has a lot of meaning to it. There's a
Well, I just shot this because I was stuck at this
neat.
at this at this bowl at this pool hall, when I was working with that artist, and I decided just to take a bunch of fun shots. Um, so what are we next? Here's using color and playing with light.
And that blurry background we can say is bokeh. That's
That's
the
lens
official
separation.
word for
Yeah,
the
it's
blurry
lens.
background is bokeh. Yeah.
It's lens separation
Yeah.
when you can
Yeah.
separate when you can separate something from the background.
Mhm.
That's why so many professional photographers, especially in the Nikon world, uh, would praise the 85mm 1.4 as the perfect portrait lens. Even in the older models of that lens
Yeah.
um, are so coveted. Like any photographer who's a Nikon user that can get hold of an old Japanese Nikon 85 1.4 lens will covet it, even if they barely use it, because it's like having that perfect drill in the toolkit. You know, they can, as long as it's in the bag, they know they can pull it out, and it's a great lens, especially with doing headshots. It's like the 85 1.4 is like, even whether it's Canon or Nikon or Sony,
Yeah.
it's one of
And
the
and
most coveted lenses.
and that's one of the things about when you get that separation, it helps to focus, like you were saying, it helps to focus the eye on. If you're taking a portrait, you're blurring out the background, so your focus is on the face rather than
Yeah, on the
the
eyes
background,
actually.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's where
Yeah.
if you have whether it's a phone or a camera, it will have subject detection. You want to make sure that if it's a person who's shooting, your focus should be on the eye.
Mhm.
Literally, like you should have the focus box around the eyes.
Mhm.
And I'm really lucky because mine, I don't know, I can't. When I take the screen off, I'll show you. When the camera has
Do you
subject
have any portraits
detection,
on? Did you pick any portraits of any of these?
I don't
Oh,
know
okay.
if I did or not.
Okay.
But I can go through the list and I
Okay.
pull one up. Um, I meant to. Um, but the eye and the cameras these days, they have so much AI subject detection in them that they can detect people, and you can put the focus right on the lens. You're
Oh,
almost going to nail it every time, because
interesting.
as long as the eye is in focus, and the face will be in general, because the camera has some people and trains and birds and all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
It's like the technology built into my mirrorless camera compared to my Nikon D850 is night and day as
Yeah.
far as the focus on it.
Hmm.
So this is a back shot of this one. Um,
Oh,
Yeah.
this
okay.
one's in color, and then I shot it, and I made the glass in black and white, and then I added an
Classic.
overlay. I added an overlay of extra bokeh stars just to make it kind of
Yeah. The
dreamy.
stars are an added effect you added there. Yeah.
I
But
like
I
that.
did have the lens did create a bokeh
Yeah.
of
All those balls you see there are they're called bokeh balls.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Bokeh
And
balls. Yeah.
what they are, Brent, is this was shot at a bar, so it was mostly lit
Oh,
around
yeah.
the bar. So these are the lights that hang over the bar and whatever,
Oh,
and
interesting.
right, they create that bokeh ball.
Yeah, they're special effects. Yeah.
This was shot. I wanted to start shooting lifestyle photography. It was winter. The only thing I could think of was going to a skate rink downtown,
Hmm.
and I was just waiting for people to come
Sure.
at me and go around and shoot really fast. So I don't know what I was shooting at actually on this
Mm.
one. Um, oh, I was at 1/500 with a 24 to 70. So my
Yeah.
shutter was really quick.
Hmm.
I didn't have to go that fast, but apparently I did.
Well, with
Um,
kids, yeah, you should be going kind of fast because
well, and
yeah.
I'm sure my F number was pretty high. I don't know if it
Hmm.
shows what it F5. So it was in the middle.
Yeah.
Usually I would have shot this at F8 if it was brighter, F9 even.
Yeah.
Um, And so this one I shot, this is one of those shots of someone who's unhoused. And I'm sure I did this with a big lens. I'm not quite sure. It tells me, no, 24 to 70, but I was far enough away to get the shot I wanted. And sometimes it's really hard. Like I'll show you, I'm pretty sure I have a shot in here I added, but it's really hard for me morally, when someone who's unhoused and I'm trying to capture them in a humane way. It's when they're staring at me. It's the most unnerving thing.
You have to be really respectful. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like when they're not looking at me, it seems, or they're looking away, I get the emotional connection, but it's really hard for me morally when they're staring at me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a fine line to walk, I guess. I shot this at a cemetery as I was leaving, just because I wanted to do some architecture.
And like you said, like there's a perfect example actually of a leading line where you're showing a path.
Oh yeah,
your eye wants to just naturally follow that road down there, right?
Can you see me pointing at the picture? I'm not sure if that shows or not.
No.
Okay, so I'm looking at the steeple, the point of the steeple closest to me, and I'm looking down to the bottom right corner of the picture almost, and I'm trying to draw my lean line from that.
And the cloud formation above there too. It's like,
yeah.
It was actually sunny out. I just made it really gloomy because it was a cemetery.
Yeah.
I wanted to add that gothicness to it. Oh my God, my shoes got so muddy, and it was like I should have worn my cheapest shoes. Here's another leading line. I photographed the piano keys going back, and this was in Kingston. They've removed a lot of them, but they would put like old pianos in public spaces in Kingston. There's a few of them around in various conditions. And this was one of them.
You took a picture of the piano, Ellen. What would you have done if all of a sudden it struck a chord?
Yeah, the photo struck a chord with me very well.
Yeah. Well, your nickname is f-stop, and we should explain what f-stop is. I mean, the higher the f-stop number, it means the more focus that you're going to get through the whole shot. So, like if you took this at f8 or f11, then all the keys would be in focus, right? Even all the way to the end. Whereas if it was like a 1.4 f-stop, then you have less keys in focus.
Yeah. I imagine this was shot. Sometimes it doesn't tell me. At 0.26, I shot this. This might have been taken with a phone. Because
it says f1.8 basically. So that's why you have less focus towards the end of the keys there. Yeah.
I don't think I shot this with the phone, with the camera. I think I shot this with the phone.
Okay.
This was I was trying to be minimalistic. Okay, so I'm in a couple of Kingston photography groups, and we have different themes. And the theme when I shot this was minimalism.
Yeah, cool.
And these are two stainless steel prisms that cross each other. If I was standing at the far left, and they would actually, you could see they were not connected. But from the angle I'm shooting from the far right, it looks like they are connected at the top, but they're not. But and in the background, you can, on the right side, you can see the windmills that run on the water. But this was shot on very close to the water along the walkway.
Yeah, it does look like it's almost connected too, doesn't it?
Now, sorry to interrupt there, Alan, but we are getting close to the top of the hour. So if you have a few more shots, let's just go through them really quickly if we can.
That was shot at night.
Okay, yeah.
that was shot.
That's cool. That's cool.
Beautiful,
That
beautiful photo.
Yeah.
I actually, they just actually took out the Causeway Bridge that would lift because they they wanted to be the city wanted to be cheap, and it was more expensive than they wanted to spend to fix this old bridge. So it's actually gone, but I could walk. I walked across it. They cut it away from traffic, so cars couldn't go across. They had to go to the further bridge, but they made it the last couple months. I think this is just before I injured my shoulder, May 19th. So I hadn't hurt my shoulder yet. So I walked away. I walked across, and I was shooting the sunset across from the city. So you can see the downtown a bit there. Oh my goodness, was I ever a buffet for the mosquitoes? I did not count for the. Oh, they had me for dinner.
Oh, the Mosquito Fest, was it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So these are the two guns.
There you go.
The Z8 is the one closest with a 24 to 70, and then you've got the well, actually, it might be the 7200, and I think this has the big 200 to 500 on it.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is what's called long exposure.
Wow.
Yeah, that's nice.
That is so gorgeous.
It's a bit. The sky's a bit washed out than I would have liked.
It looks like you did a color filter on that, like a blue color filter. Did you, or is that pretty accurate?
No, it was a lot of blue in the sky. It's what the sky rendered.
That's
amazing.
interesting.
The sky was
because it almost looks fake. It almost looks fake, but sometimes that's the way the camera captures it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I was the exposure was like 90 seconds. Even with the ND filter on it.
I love that photo.
So that's just the Z8 with the big lens on it. Now that's a 24-70 on there. Here's a truck shot. Yeah. This is an old one taken at a car show in Niagara. Yeah. So this was taken with the phone actually. I did not have my camera on me when I shot this, so it was shot with an iPhone.
Oh wow!
But you can. I got really low, and sometimes changing your point of view when you're shooting can make all the difference. If I was standing up, I wouldn't have got this ominous point of view of it where most of the garbage. I was really low when I shot this. I crouched down really low to get that shot.
Yeah,
and it changes how a photograph is viewed. It makes it very apocalyptic sometimes. So you get this almost like this could be like, oh.
I'm noticing a theme there, Alan. You like the dark and dreary photos.
Well, it shows a harsh reality to that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like a Gotham.
Yeah.
So this is actually at a marina across from the Kingston Penitentiary, which is in the background.
Yeah.
The infamous where Paul Bernardo used to be actually.
Oh yes.
When it was open.
Oh, okay.
Now it's open for tours.
Oh.
It's like our version. It's like our version of Alcatraz.
Oh,
the Kingston Pen was like was the real. If you went to the Kingston Pen, you did something really kind of bad.
So the sharks were swarming around. You can't get over to put the piranhas on.
This is kind of a Boca vibe. I kind of like that. The mirror, my sunglasses, and we're giving off. I could almost use this for an ad. I should actually send this to Corona and see if they use it. They want to buy it.
Yeah, cool.
But I think it was shot with my phone. I don't think I shot that with my. So I don't see my phone as anything different than the third camera. I don't. I'm like a lot of people go, well, I shot it, but phone photography has been out there for last 10 years, really. It's just a tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
So this guy was playing saxophone downtown. I thought that was an interesting shot. This is the lead singer of the Crash Test Dummies.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh.
A little older than when he had long hair doing the Superman song.
Yeah.
That's him. And he still sounds the same.
Yeah.
He still got that tenor voice.
That's cool.
This was shot on the old cruise ship called I forget what it's called. I don't think my information gives me the name of the ship. No, it doesn't. I should have. Um, but these were one of the staterooms, and that had props in them on this old Victorian boat. I don't know if I choose a picture from it, but I thought that black guitar and that banjo was a perfect shot. And they had,
Yeah.
so, this is again the boat.
Leading lines again, yeah.
Leading lines again.
Yeah.
This is leading lines if you look
Yeah.
straight up.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's an interesting one.
Oh, this is an old building. This is an old apartment building in the east end of Toronto
Oh,
called Cabbagetown.
that's an interesting building.
This was at a car show, so you can kind of see like people in the background a bit.
Now, again for this one, you applied. You must have applied an effect.
All
right?
I did was I took the image and I selected the background and I made it blurry in black and white and desaturated it.
Okay.
And
It
then
looks like it's you've heard of that miniaturization effect a little bit. It looks like it's
Yeah.
been miniaturized a little bit. Did you apply that or not?
No,
It looks like
all I did was I selected the car and I made it higher contrast because it was already red. It was a blue sky, so the blue when it's middle of the day like 2 p.m. the sun is at its highest if it's out, and if there's no clouds in the sky like it was like blue sky, the light is very hard, so it makes it very punchy, and I probably had a circular polarizer on that lens, if I'm being honest.
Okay. Now we're already at 1 o'clock. So if we can fire through this.
So we have a leading line here with an old building. This is an old Rolls Royce. I thought that was an interesting shot.
Yeah.
It was gray out. It was overcast anyway.
Yeah.
I shot this guy, and just the way he was standing with the blue doorway and the pinstripe suit.
That almost looks like a painting. It almost looks like a painting.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an old bookstore. And I was like, I have to shoot that. And he was not in photos. I literally turned my body without moving my feet to my right, and there he was. So this is really one of those hard shots where the guy's looking at me.
Yeah.
Like just staring at me. But it almost looks like he's staring at past me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
He's looking he's looking through me.
Yeah.
But he's not a very friendly homeless person. He's a pretty angry dude. But I was shooting the camera sitting on my knee, just pointing at him, looking at him, and then shooting. I just literally hovered my finger over, because when I autofocus the camera, I use a button on the back. I don't have to press my shutter down. I've got it set so that my back button focuses, and then so I would literally hover over the autofocus, wait for the camera to lock in on him, and then I shot it.
Yeah, yeah.
Same kind of here, but I was able to have the camera up to my eye.
Yeah.
And I was using a 70-200, I'm sure. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is where I can use that 70-200 in my favor, where I can be far enough away.
Yeah.
These shots were taken where the camera was literally on a tripod at the lowest point to the ground as it could. The camera was actually upside down when I shot that. So the body was like super close, and I was using my phone to take the pictures.
Yeah.
I was using the phone as a remote trigger.
Yeah, that's cool.
She just went past me, it was perfect. Same with this guy, completely oblivious to the camera, being like 2 feet away from him.
Yeah, that's cool.
I shot that one. I shot this one at a musical bar, a jazz bar. I shot him.
That's a neat shot.
I shot this. They call her Screaming Sally.
Okay.
She just screams at you. She's
Oh.
pretty much anybody that catches her eye, she'll just go off. I mean, like, there's nothing you can do. People, this is why our mental health situation is such a mess because people like her should have been in care at a group home or something where she was properly medicated and maybe would have had some kind of quality of life. But there's tons of people like her that don't have any quality of life because there's nowhere for them to go.
Yeah.
So unfortunate.
And
That's
I
a cool
think he's
shot.
the last. And then I got these two guys again. And that shot, same idea with the camera on the ground. Shot
That's
that the other
some
day.
nice color there.
Wow.
Nice color pop. Yeah.
Oh, this
Yes.
moon was so close to the Earth, it wasn't even funny. It was actually really opaque, right where the sun was still out. I shot that while we're getting on the ferry, waiting for the ferry to show up. And that's f2.8. So it's as creamy as the lens is going to make it.
Yeah.
That was on the ferry.
Oh, wow.
This was at Wolf Island.
Okay.
And again, is that pretty accurate color rendition, or did you play with that?
Not much.
Oh wow,
that's pretty
cool.
much out of the camera.
That's cool.
Oh, that's so neat.
So when the ferry leaves downtown, it goes to Wolf Island, but it goes to the little community called Maryville. Okay. And these are the boats that are on buoys, buoys. Instead of dropping an anchor, they just go up to it and they grab a rope and then they tie off to it.
Aye, Captain. Hold on
and that's it.
There.
That is it.
Well, we've reached the end of the show there, Brent. So we can.
I want to thank you, Alan, for sharing with us all your beautiful photos today and all your different screenshots of a lot of classic photos for sure. And I look forward to your photos again. Definitely share some more of your awesome photos that you're taking.
It was a fun one.
That's pretty much a year in Kingston.
Oh wow!
We're trying to pick the best of. That's kind of the greatest hits.
It's always hard to kind of rush. It's always kind of hard to rush to the photo. So I appreciate you're being patient with us there, Alan. But it was a great show. Yeah.
It was a wonderful show, Alan.
So my hope, if I can get, if it might take me a couple months, I'm hoping I can get it ready for next spring. Is shoot this is basically supposed to be saying that photography is accessible for anybody, whether you're in a wheelchair or you can walk or whatever.
Right.
And you don't need to have camera gear like I do to do it.
Yeah. Although it's nice to have the $1,000 lens.
Sure.
Yeah. Another tool in the toolbox. Yeah.
But that's all I see. My camera is no different than the painter who uses a brush, and no painter uses just one brush, right? So they have wide brushes, soft brushes, thin brushes, wide brushes. So photography is no different than that. The lenses are just different brushes. So
that's awesome. Well, thank you very much, Ellen, for sharing all the content with us today. And I want to thank our listeners and our viewers today watching the live broadcast. And stay tuned for more wonderful episodes. Ellen will be joining us again in the very near future with more awesome photos and talking about accessibility in his photography. And
I'll close with this. Get off YouTube and go out there and take pictures.
There you go.
Yeah.
Start shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today for another great episode. And please subscribe, like, and, just let your friends and family know that disabilities don't go away. You can develop a disability at any point in time in your life. If you'd like to come on to the show and talk about lived experience, please reach out to Neil or myself, and we'll get you scheduled in. Thank you so much, everyone, again, and have a great day.